If you want consistent growth in new clients for your consulting firm, it's not going to happen by hoping for random referrals. And it's also not about working harder, going to endless networking functions. The real breakthrough happens when you build the right strategy and the right execution systems behind it. Today, I'll show you the exact changes in approach that I use to grow my consulting firms and be able to sell them, and how you can implement the same approach so clients start coming to you consistently on command instead of having the feast-famine cycles that you're probably used to. If you want to go deeper in this approach to getting clients on command, we have a 2-hour workshop that goes deep into every step of this process. So if you'd like to know more about that, drop the word command in the comments below and I'll make sure you get access. If you're stuck in that endless feast-famine sales cycle that I talked about, you've got to realize that it doesn't have to be that way. And you also need to take responsibility that it is that way, because it's not about the market. It's not about the economy. It's not about your pricing. And it's not about the way you deliver your services. The reality is, if you are not attracting clients consistently and predictably to your firm, you don't have the right strategy in place, and you probably haven't set up an approach of systematic marketing to attract your ideal clients. This is exactly why in the Versetta model, we look at the client perspective in relation to strategy and execution, because those two elements are the critical factors to enable you to create consistent client acquisition. Because if you're like most consulting firms I know, you probably have been used to winning clients through referrals. And that's great. We all love referrals, but the reality is that they're not controllable. You have no control over when you receive referrals. Therefore, reliance on referrals gives you no control over your ability to scale your firm. You can't grow your firm effectively unless you have a proactive approach to client acquisition. So it's great that you get referrals, and I hope you get many more of them. But if you want to take charge of the ability to grow your firm, you need to create a proactive approach to your marketing. That means that, first of all, you need to have clarity about the strategy that you use. And what I see is that because of that reliance on referrals, the strategy of passive marketing, if I can put it that way, is what keeps you limited. So you need to have a proactive strategy, which is about looking to your clients and looking at defining exactly who are your best clients, who are the premium clients that pay you the most amount of money in the least amount of time and are the most enjoyable ones to work with. Because if we're going to work with premium level and ideal clients, why not focus on those three criteria? And the reality is that for most consulting firms, it's a scattergun approach or a spray and pray approach. There's no real clarity about who you're trying to serve in the market. You don't have any clarity around the specific problem that you solve for them. Therefore, any client becomes a good client. And although after a while you learn that that is not true, and you have a bit of discretion about clients, typically the need to have more revenue means that you probably take on clients that you should never take on. If you ever suffer from scope creep, if you ever suffer from having to present proposals in a competitive environment, or if you ever suffer from workloads that you aren't sure you can complete on time and meet the client's deadlines, then you have really set up your business to be difficult to manage. And therefore, if it's difficult to manage, it's probably not scalable, and you are reliant on what sort of clients turn up to enable you to generate the revenue. And in most situations that I see, when a firm is operating like that, the owners of the business are really managing to survive rather than managing to succeed. So I'm going to recommend to you that you don't operate like the majority of consultancy firms. You don't want to have a spray and pray approach where you're just hoping the right clients turn up for you to be able to give a proposal and win their work. Let's turn that all around and be proactive and have a strategic approach to marketing. And that strategic approach means that you want to be focused first and foremost on what your premium level clients really want. So first of all, who are those premium clients? You need to be able to define them and be able to recognize them so that you can reach out to them in your marketing. And the reality is that if you are specific about your target market, you can have a greater level of understanding of their problems than if you had a generalized approach to marketing. When you have a specific target market or a specific type of client in mind, you want to get intimate with them in a way that enables you to understand the problems that they face, and in a way that gives you the ability to describe the problems to them in probably a more articulate way than they can describe the problem themselves. Because when that happens, they automatically ascribe to you a level of authority. Because when you understand their problem and can describe it better than they can, they see you as an authority. They see you as having expertise in that area. And that's why most consulting firms come unstuck and don't have a real connection with their target market, is they seem to be operating with a level of misunderstanding. They don't really understand what their ideal clients' biggest problems are, or don't understand the situation they find themselves in. They seem to be more generalized and talk in industry jargon instead of the way the clients talk about their challenges. So the first thing is to have a clear market positioning. Be clear about who it is you serve and be clear about the problem that you solve for your clients. Because when you're clear about that, you can communicate with a level of intimacy that others can't match. The second aspect of that is to have a client-centered approach. You want to be able to talk to your clients in a way that they know that you care. And one of the favourite sayings I've heard, I can't remember whose quote this is, but it's, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So in our marketing, we first and foremost want to be showing people how much we care about them and their situation, rather than showing them how much we know, which is a bit ironic, because in a lot of ways we think that authority positioning is showing them how much we know, talking about our expertise and our experience. But that's not it at all. We need to show people how much we care. And when we show them how much we care, that authority and trust is really established at a much greater level than through the general types of promotion or even the educational marketing that people do by posting on LinkedIn or in other social media. The other aspect of that is that we need to make sure that we are not focused on getting sales. And that's an easy trap to fall into, because sales generate revenue. So our aim is so much about getting sales. But when you look at it from the client's perspective, you need to have a focus on building relationships, because I think for most of us in the B2B markets, when we're offering consultancy services, we want long-term, long-lasting relationships with our clients. We don't want to be transactional. We don't want to just make a sale, do the work, and go on and never see that client again. That is a very poor business model if that's how you're operating. And for most of us, there's an opportunity to solve a number of problems that are back to back on the initial problem that we are focused on. When we are able to solve that initial problem for our clients, we can probably add on extra services and solutions to solve the next problem and the next one, or a cluster of problems that are related to that initial one. So make sure that you're focused on relationships rather than sales. And the important part of having a strategy is to create an ecosystem around your marketing. People talk about having sales or marketing funnels, and I don't really prescribe to that, because I think that doesn't really work for professional services. For us in consulting services, having a marketing funnel is not a realistic approach, because, as we talked about, we need to be looking at building relationships rather than making sales. So I prefer to see that we are creating an ecosystem. And the biggest challenge I see for most consultants, and particularly this is evident on their websites, and it comes across in the marketing, without having a proper strategic approach, we are really focused on promoting our value. What is our value to our clients? And maybe we have a clear value proposition that we're proud of, and that's what we present to our clients. And that's all well and good, but promoting our value has a place in this ecosystem. So often when we go to the market with our value, we are really just hitting deaf ears. We're not getting any response, because most of that value proposition is not relevant in its delivery or the timing of its delivery to our clients. So the ecosystem that I recommend is to really start with relevance. What is the most relevant message we can deliver to our clients to get their attention? Because getting your client's attention is the most challenging thing in marketing. So what is it that is relevant to the client to get their attention? And really, for most of us, that is approaching at the problem level. Most clients are aware of their problem. They're not aware of your solution. So when you talk about your solution or your services, that really doesn't have any relevance to them, because they're not looking for your specific solution, or only a very tiny percentage of the market may be looking for your solution. But there are so many people who could use your solution that are stuck in the problem awareness stage. So they're talking to their friends about the problem, not about, do you know someone with this solution or this service? So we need to start our conversation with them around the problem, and that is where we are relevant to them. When we begin to get their attention because we're relevant, the next part of the ecosystem is to create connection. We need to be able to connect with them at a visceral level around an emotional standpoint, or what we stand for in our business. What do we stand for? What are the purposeful aspects of what we do and how we approach our clients and how we run our business? We need to be able to connect with our clients at that level first, because the most important and next part of that ecosystem is building trust. And until we build trust with our clients, we have no chance of making a sale. And therefore, when we present our value, we need to have that trust platform in place so that people want to hear what we have to offer, because they They trust that we are experts. They trust that we have some authority in what we're doing. Therefore, when we offer our value after we've established trust, they're open to hearing that. But the final part of the ecosystem that gets people to take action is belief. It's one thing that they understand our value, but they have to believe that our value is going to be beneficial to them before they're willing to take action. So when we can establish belief with them, they will take action to buy our services at that point. So in your marketing, make sure that you're building an ecosystem that has a number of different phases and stages to go from that stranger to trusted advisor within that process, so that you are getting attraction from the premium clients that you're looking for. Now, once we have an effective strategy in place and we have that framework and ecosystem designed, we need to focus on execution, because strategy without execution is useless. We need to execute on our strategy. So we need to build the systems that enable us to be relevant or be seen to be relevant, to create that connection, to build trust, to deliver our value, or to at least communicate our value and that belief factor. So we need to set up a process or a system within our business that has multiple stages and multiple levels. And what I see is that we can build an escalator of methodology or system here that takes our clients through those various levels, beginning with entering the conversation that is already in our client's mind. And that is the problem factor that we talked about before. So we need to create regular communications or methods to get into that initial conversation with our clients. And once we enter that conversation, we then need to have a way to enroll our potential clients in an ongoing communication. And ideally, that might be capturing their email address and then offering them value through ongoing communications, through sending out regular emails that not just promoting our services, but are providing authority content that establishes ourselves as the authority, so that through that process of education, which is the big part of that ongoing communication process, we need to be educating our clients, not about us and what we can do for them specifically, because that's about trying to persuade clients, which really, when we try to persuade, we create resistance. A much more effective approach here is to educate them about the problem, making them aware that there's a solution to that problem, making them aware that there's actually a best practice approach to solving that problem, and taking them through a level of learning so that they see that they want that solution. Now, that's about building desire in our clients and building demand, creating demand for them to want our solution. So instead of persuading them that they need our service to solve their problem, when we educate them that they can see, or educate them in a way that they can see a very effective solution, they will demand that solution from us. And that really flips the whole dynamic. Instead of having to persuade them and provide proposals in a competitive environment, they see us as the authority and they come to us saying, we want that solution, and we see how effective that can be. How can we get started? And that change in approach really just makes selling so much easier, and it's attracting clients on a regular, continuous basis when we operate that way, so that we can then entice them into that relationship with us to start that relationship as we engage them in our initial services. And then we want to escalate that relationship to ongoing levels so that they work with us continuously for a long term, but also become raving fans and advocates for us so that they are giving referrals to other people or referring us to others so that we can help their friends as well. So build that ecosystem, build the methodology, and then execute that system continuously, consistently, and regularly so that you have inbound leads coming to you consistently, predictably, and regularly. So when you have that ecosystem in place, you have that methodology and system to attract your premium clients, you will be able to scale your business and grow your business effectively without worrying about where your next client is coming from. When I implemented this approach into my business, it just changed the dynamics incredibly. I was struggling, like most of us, with the same feast-famine cycles. I was finding it hard to attract clients. And initially, starting my first consulting business, I really didn't have any way of getting referrals other than going to the networking meetings and doing all of that typical networking. And I really wasn't a great networker. I'd come from an accountancy background. I was a shy young person, and going out and meeting strangers wasn't very comfortable for me. And neither was getting on the telephone and making cold calls, although I knew that I could do that. I'd learnt to do that in the previous company that I'd worked with. And even though I didn't enjoy it, I knew that it was where I needed to start. So I started in that first practice, day one, getting on the phone, making cold calls, but really I didn't last very long at that because it was just too hard and too ineffective. So I knew there had to be a better way because other firms had started and grown and had come from nowhere, others in the same situation as I was in. So I went on a research expedition and looked for how to grow my consultancy firm from scratch. And what I discovered was really the seed of this approach that I've talked about here. So I discovered that people didn't want to be interrupted, to be offered an opportunity to meet me to talk about my services, but they were interested in valuable information that was helpful for them. So the start of this approach that I now call the Strategic Authority Marketing System was based on that learning right back at the start. And my system and methodology evolved until I had all these steps in place. But when I had those steps in place, particularly when I had authority positioning nailed down and people saw me as an authority, we started to get rapid returns on our investment in that process, to the point where for 3 years in a row, our firm doubled its sales revenue. And that's back to back. So it's not 6 times the revenue, it's multiples of that. It's an exponential growth, not a linear growth. So it means that employing this sort of methodology in your business can have exponential results as well. It doesn't take much to change your situation from feast-famine cycles to consistency and predictability by putting in place the right strategy and the right systems. And when you do that, not only does your sales volume increase, but the lead quality increases. The quality of clients you have coming to you improves. The clients that you win are better. The work that you do with them is more efficient and more effective and turns into long-term relationships with your clients, as we talked about. So having better clients, better sales experiences, easier sales, and more efficient operations as a result of having clarity around who your best clients are and your best solution for them. Just gives you so much more impetus in being able to grow your business effectively. So that transformation starts with you making a decision to stop operating reactively or passively and start being proactive about growing your business, and start to look at the market from your client's perspective instead of from your business perspective. Because when you look at it from the client's perspective and really understand what it is that they really want from you, what problems they have and how you can provide solutions to those problems in a way that they appreciate, they value, you can operate in a way that is beneficial to them and gives them the perspective of what you can offer, rather than you trying to persuade them to buy your services. And that shift just changes your market dynamics to an extraordinary extent. And what that means for you is less time networking, less time in lead generation personally, because you have a system that's doing it, less reliance on referrals, less interruption of workflows because troublesome clients are creating scope creep or not holding up their end of the bargain, so they're delaying you from being able to do the work, and they're just releasing you from the stress and pressure that you feel in running a business that's not as efficient as it could be. So making that shift is all about looking at how can you be the orchestrator in your business rather than the operator of the business. And we've talked about that in the previous video when we unpacked the Vasetta model. In this video, we've focused on the client perspective of strategy and execution. And in the next video, we're going to talk about how to look at your business from the team perspective and how to create efficiency, effectiveness, and high performance in a business that operates for you, not because of you. So click this link here to go to that next video now, where you'll find out how to run your business effectively in a way that an orchestrator runs a business rather than the inefficient, pressured, stressful way that an operator runs a business.